What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word? I'm Amber. Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Match Me Abroad Season 2, Episode 9, Fanning the Flames. Let's talk about the seductress herself, Miss Monica. So, Monica is on her second date with Bruno, and Bruno has invited Monica to his home because he wants to make a home cooked meal for her. He wants to cook dinner for her, which I thought was a great idea for a second date. Obviously, they were really feeling each other on the first date. So the second date is a chance for them to get to know each other a little bit more. It's an intimate setting in his home, just the two of them. He's cooking, they're talking, they're getting to know each other better. So while they're eating dinner, he's asking her about her history. And she says that she was a single mom and that she had her child when she was in college, and that it took her 8 years to graduate because she was juggling motherhood and a job and school all together. And so it took a little bit longer to graduate. And he thought that that was really impressive that she still stuck to her goal to graduate from college. And he called her a warrior. So he's praising her for all that she's accomplished in life. And while he's praising her, and just absolutely impressed with what she's been through, she takes his hand and she kisses the back of his hand while they're talking, right? And she keeps his hand pressed against her lips for quite a while. It wasn't just like a quick kiss on the back of the hand and then let's continue the conversation. No, she kept his hand pressed against her lips for an uncomfortably long time. It was uncomfortable for me to watch. I know that Bruno didn't see it as uncomfortable. She obviously didn't think it was uncomfortable, but it was uncomfortable for me to watch because I was like, what is she doing? He's trying to like connect with her. He's praising her about, what she's gone through in life. And she's kind of like interrupting the flow of the conversation by holding his hand up against her lips. So at this point, I was like, I don't know how many glasses of wine she's had to drink, but I know it's been more than just one because I thought her eyes looked a little bit glassy. She kind of had that glazed over look, like she was kind of tipsy. So I was like, okay, Monica's a little bit drunk, and that's why she's acting like this. And the producers of these reality TV shows, they never want to show us exactly how much the cast is drinking because then it would explain a lot of how people act the way they act on reality TV when there's alcohol flowing. But I know for sure Monica did not just have one glass of wine from the way she was acting because at a certain point she had really quit talking and he was the one carrying the conversation. So after she thankfully gave him back his hand, um he's talking about himself, giving his own history, and then she starts putting her finger against his lips and running her fingers like around his lips, trying to be very seductive while he's talking about himself. So okay, fine, there's chemistry, she's attracted and all of that, but I didn't think that really was the moment for her to be acting like this because he was, talking about himself, getting to let her know more about him and his background, and she's busy, getting all seductive with him. So she's playing with his lips, and then he tells her that she's incredible, and they start to kiss, and she gets up and she gives him a hug. And then they do more kissing and hugging. And then they're in the middle of his living room and they do like a little dance. They start dancing together for a little bit. And then he lifts her up and she wraps her legs around his waist. And, they're making out basically, right? They're making out. So the part about getting to know each other better, getting deeper with one another, all of that went out the damn window once Monica started feeling herself after who knows how many glasses of wine. So then after that, the date was over. She said that she had to go. He was like, oh, don't you want to stay? And she was like, no, I got to go back. And then they promised to keep in touch and she was out of there. And I don't know. The date went well, obviously. I'm pretty sure he had no complaints and she didn't either. But I felt like her acting the way she was acting, being like wanting to make out and being all seductive, it kind of got in the way of them connecting. Because I don't know if Monica is one of those women that thinks that in order to get to a man is to play up the sexuality. Like you have to be seductive and sexy and be willing to get physical and make out in order to keep a man interested. Because I thought the date would have gone just as well, if not better, if they just would have kept talking. And she tells us at the end of the date that even though she likes Bruno and there is a connection between them, she still feels this pull towards Bernardo, the younger guy. So who knows what's going to happen there. But I'm like, Monica, are you here to try to find something serious? Or, girl, are you here just to have a good time in Brazil and love up on these Brazilian men? Like, because I'm beginning to really wonder, because you're not really acting like someone looking for a husband. You're acting like someone who's just trying to have a good time in Brazil. Moving on to Sarah. So Sarah is really frustrated with her matchmaker Dolly because Dolly has set her up with two duds, okay, two losers. And she's trying to figure out, like, am I wasting my time here in Singapore with her? And, why isn't she listening to me when I'm telling her what I'm looking for in a man? So hopefully the third time is going to be the charm with EJ. So EJ is her third match, and his plan for her is for them to go to a gym and learn some kickboxing. And this is really out of Sarah's element, but she's going to be a good sport about it and she's still going to go through with it. Now, EJ himself is a mixture of Portuguese, Indian, and I think Malaysian. And he's a successful business owner of several gyms. So he's got the money. He's also a bodybuilder. So he's got the physique. She says that she likes muscular men. He's covered in tattoos. That's also a big plus for her. So EJ tells us that he's willing to spoil a girl, but not too much. And when they meet, Sarah finds him attractive. But EJ tells us that his first impression of her is that she did appear a bit bimbo-ish, but he was going to give her the chance to get to know her better. So they do the kickboxing thing. She really doesn't like it, but the good thing is you can't tell that she doesn't like it. She was a good sport about it. She was smiling, she was laughing the whole time. She was, putting on a show like she was having a good time. But she does tell us that, yeah, I really wasn't feeling that. I'd rather go to like a nice restaurant and have a nice meal and some wine. Anything but that. But she was a good sport. At the end of their kickboxing training, he presented her with a bouquet of flowers, like a big bouquet of flowers. And so she really did like that. That was really impressive. And, that scored him some points. So she was totally out of her element with the whole kickboxing thing, but he made up for it with the flowers. After that, they go to dinner. So they're sitting at dinner and they're talking about their families or upbringing. She talks about her father passing away. He talks about losing his parents really early on in life. And they've both experienced love at first sight. He's been previously married. He was married about 13 years ago. And he tells her that when he met his wife, it was like an instant connection. It was love at first sight. And she talks about the same thing, that one of her long-term relationships, when they met, it was also love at first sight. So they had that in common. So they both understood what that felt like. So during the conversation, EJ realizes that Sarah is actually a lot deeper and more complex than what she appears, because obviously her looks kind of make her look simple and dumb, like he said, bimbo-ish. But when you get to talk to her, you realize that she has a lot of depth. And she says that he looks like a bad boy, but he's not a bad boy, because she doesn't really want a bad boy. She just wants someone to look like a bad boy. So the conversation is going well. They're laughing, they're talking, they're connecting. And I was like, wow, do we finally have a successful match? Because their date went really, really well. So now Sarah's confidence in Dolly has been restored because this date did go very well. Um, Obviously, when you look at EJ, he's not someone that you would automatically think would be a good match for Sarah, because Sarah comes across like she wants someone who's like an executive, a CEO, someone who's in the suit. But he's not that. But they got along well. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this was an actually like a good match, and that it doesn't go bad in any way. I really hope that they're going to continue to see each other in Singapore. So I was really happy for Sarah that she finally found someone. Moving on to Harold. So Harold is still on his date with Amber. I feel like they've been on this date for 3 weeks. They are still on this damn date. I can't remember now if this was their first date or their second. No, this is their second date. So they've been on it for we've been watching the second date for 2 weeks. This is their second date. So they talk about the most exotic places that they've ever been intimate. Amber says in a public toilet, which Harold told us was a porta potty. And I was like, oh my God. And then Harold, he says the most public places he's ever been intimate in was a movie theater. So they both got a little bit of freak in them. So they feel comfortable enough to talk about that with one another. Harold is thinking that she is very open minded about sex. And so that kind of gets him excited, that she's not very conservative or closed off about it. She even talks about how, in Singapore or in Asian countries, premarital sex is like looked down upon, and people will wait until they're married to finally have sex. But she's like, yeah, I've done it a couple of times. I've had sex and I'm not married, and I don't see a big deal about that. So that's like a plus for Harold, right? So Amber brings up her concerns with autism while they're having dinner. And she says, I'm kind of worried about that because, can that be passed on to your offspring? And Harold said that even if it is, because I'm autistic and I know what to look for, if I see it in our children, I'll know how to deal with it a lot earlier in order to help our kids. And I don't know if that was encouraging or discouraging for Amber, because I'm pretty sure Amber wanted him to say that either no, it's not passed on genetically, or the chances are very low for an autistic person to have an autistic child. I think that was the answer that she was really looking for, but he was like, well, so what if it is? I'm an expert at it because I have it and I'll be able to help our kids. Then they talk about how many kids they want to have. Harold said he wanted like 6 kids or something. So it seems like and she didn't even like slow him down. She wasn't like, wait a minute, we just got to know each other. You still have to meet my family and pass that test. She kind of was like going along with the conversation of them possibly having kids. And when they walked away, when their date was over, they walked away holding hands. So then Harold meets up with his matchmaker, Dolly, to talk about his date, how his date went with Amber. Harold says that proposing after date 2, proposing to Amber is on his mind. And Dolly tells him that, I've talked to Amber, and she thinks that things are moving a little bit too fast, and she wants y'all to kind of slow it down a little bit. And Harold was confused. He was like, well, when I'm with her, she doesn't express any of that. She doesn't let me know that we're going too fast. In fact, it seems like she's on the same speed as I am, which is true, because when he's talking about kids and all of that, she's not slowing him down when he's talking. And she's even bringing up the possibility of, autism being passed on to their children. Like, if you're not even thinking about procreating with this man, why would you even bring it up to him? So it seems like, she is, what did he say? What did he call her? That she was, Harold says, okay, Amber told Dolly Harold is moving too fast. Dolly tells her to slow down and enjoy the process. And that basically, like, she's contradicting herself. That Amber is telling Dolly one thing and then making Harold think something else. Like, she's misleading Harold. And Harold tells us the reason why he's kind of like moving as fast as he is with Amber is because when he was in Prague in season 1 and he met Michaela and they got along really well and they had a connection, when he left Europe, he left without any kind of commitment or confirmation from Michaela as far as what they were to each other. Like, they didn't put a label on what they were. Are we boyfriend and girlfriend? Is it just casual? Is it serious? So he says because of that, because they kind of left everything open ended, that relationship failed. So he's like, I'm not going to make that same mistake. So before I leave Singapore, I need to know exactly where me and Amber stand. So I like her. I thought she liked me. So I need to make sure that when I leave, I'm leaving with at least confirmation that we are in an exclusive relationship, that we are boyfriend and girlfriend, and that we are exclusive. So this is the reason why he's been moving as fast as he's been moving. Amber also told Dolly that she wants a man to be a leader, and she doesn't see that leadership in Harold. And I think that Amber also told Dolly that she sees some immaturity in Harold because she wants a man that's going to be like, a leader, that's going to be giving like head of household energy, making decisions, because she doesn't want that to fall on her. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if maybe Harold is a follower because he seems like he just wants to please his woman. Like, whatever she wants is fine with me. If that's what you want, okay, we'll do that. And I guess in that sense, he's not much of a leader, but that's what Amber wants. She wants someone to take charge. Harold tells us that he's confused with Amber, that she's giving mixed signals, as I mentioned before. And yeah, that's the part, that was the term that I was looking for, is that she thinks that he thinks that Amber is giving mixed signals. He doesn't understand why. Just like with the whole autism thing, when he first told her that he was autistic, she didn't seem to have a problem with it, but then she expresses a concern to Dolly the matchmaker that she's, like, okay, he's autistic, I don't know how I feel about that. So I wish that Amber would stop playing games and just be very upfront and honest with Harold. Moving on to the other Amber. So Amber, I guess, doesn't have much going on because they have her meeting up with Victoria and Victoria's match, Darren. And I didn't get that. Like, why are we watching this? That was very odd to me. So at first it's Victoria and Amber. They meet up at a pub, and Victoria shows Amber her tattoo, lets Amber know that Darren got the same tattoo. They got matching tattoos after their first date, and that they call each other and talk every day. And Amber is like very like wishful thinking that, she was hoping that she would have a connection like that. And, she wishes that, her dudes, especially Keven, would keep up with her daily, communicate with her daily. She thought it was a great idea. I think that that Victoria and Darren got matching tattoos. Because when Victoria showed her the tattoo, Amber was like, "Oh my God!" She was really impressed by it, and hopefully she was just acting like that to support Victoria. But hopefully, deep down inside, Amber thought that that was weird and a red flag to get matching tattoos. But then again, on the other hand, it's not really seen. Okay, I'm all over the place. Let me uh bring it in. Okay, getting matching tattoos so early on in the relationship after a first date, I guess it could be an okay thing because it's just memorializing an experience. It doesn't mean that we're going to get married. It doesn't mean that we're deeply in love with each other. It doesn't mean that we're soulmates. It just means that we are having a good time. And this tattoo symbolizes this experience in our life, which is very unique. Okay, fine. So maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe I'm putting 20 on 10 when it comes to getting matching tattoos after date one. So Amber tells us about she tells us about how the communication with Keven is slacking. But all of a sudden, after a couple of days of not hearing from him, Keven called her completely out of the blue and asked her to go on an overnight trip. And so she's just kind of confused, like, I haven't heard from you in so long, and I was wanting to talk to you. Now all of a sudden you call me, you want me to go on an overnight trip with you. My theory was, I think the reason why Keven cooled off was after she invited him back to her hotel. I think he wanted things to go further, and she put the brakes on that. And I think that's why he backed off. I think he was probably thought either she's playing with me, or she's leading me on, or I'm not interested in a woman who's going to invite me to her hotel and then not give it up. I don't know. That's my thought, because the cooling off happened right after the hotel thing, right after she took him back to her hotel, and nothing happened. But he's back and he wants to go on an overnight trip with her. So she's a little bit confused, but she's going to go with him. Okay, so Darren joins them. And like I said, Amber compares her experiences with Victoria's experience. And she thinks that she's not getting a lot out of these men. But then again, there's Glenn, and Glenn is moving full force. He's moving full steam ahead by taking her to meet his parents and everything. Katerina says that, the men in Ireland, they do move slow, I guess, explaining Keven. But then she also said that it was a little bit unusual for Darren to take Amber back to meet his parents because it's very atypical of Irish men to do something like that, to move that fast. So Katerina thinks that maybe Glenn is love bombing Amber. That's a lot. Okay, moving on. Um, Katerina encourages Keven to express his feelings to Amber because Keven has told Katerina that he does have deep feelings for Amber, but he doesn't show it. He doesn't show it. You got deep feelings for her, but then you ghosted her for like 3 days. Like, what the hell is that all about? Amber is still comparing her experiences with Victoria's. And there's a scene where she's talking to the producers and she's like, yeah, Victoria, her and that dude are doing this and doing that. They talk every day. They got matching tattoos and I'm not experiencing that. And so she feels a little bit down about that. I'm surprised. Okay. Also, Victoria and Darren, okay, I talk every day. Not understanding why Keven has been so MIA, but she is still willing to go on this overnight date or overnight trip with Keven to figure out exactly where they stand. She's running out of time, so she needs to know exactly what's what. So while she's on this overnight trip with Keven, like what's gonna be going on with Glenn? I don't know. Who knows? I'm all over the place, y'all. I'm really sorry. Amber's segment wasn't that interesting, so it's hard for me to stay focused. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it on your way out. Please don't forget to rate the video if you like this content. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.